All right. And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. And as in typical PK style, obviously, we had problems on the first stream, so we had to do it again. So, just for the sake of this re record and the other one's deleted, we're going to pretend like that live never happened. But
Never happened.
I do want to reintroduce Rage. So, for anybody who's not watching this real time, maybe you're watching this after the fact, it is important you guys know who he is. There's two things I like to do on this channel. One is like to highlight people with awesome backstories in this hobby. But number two, I like to highlight people who are net positives for this hobby. And Rage checks both those boxes. One, he has an awesome backstory, but more importantly, he is a huge net positive. If you guys are not familiar with who Rage is, or if this is the first time you've ever seen him, that probably means you're not in the Rattle Discord. So I recommend you guys join in that Rattle Discord. But Rage is one of those people, if you ever have random questions or topics you want to talk about or things you need answered, he's one of those great resources for all things Pokemon, but mainly just all things in life in general. The dude's like an encyclopedia of just knowledge. I'm always shocked at what he knows. He probably has forgotten more stuff than I'll ever know. But with that said, Rage, once again, man, thank you again for coming on this channel. For anybody out there who may not know who you are, I know you just did this like 2 minutes ago, but feel
Yeah.
free to introduce yourself to everybody again.
Yeah, my name is Cyrus, but everybody calls me Rage or Slime is another one because my nickname was Slimy Sen for the longest time on the internet, and that kind of just my brand's name is Rage Quit, so they kind of just morphed into the Rage Slime thing. But yeah, most people just call me either Rage, or in some other communities, people do call me Slime. But I just want to say thank you so much for having me, PK. I'm a big fan of your content, and I consider you a close personal friend. So I'm stoked to be on the pod, and yeah, couldn't be
Oh,
more excited.
man, I think it's not working again. Oh wait, no, wait. It says excellent
Okay.
connection. We're good. We're back. Uh, but no, sorry. But yeah, no. One of the things I wanted to do too is we talked about this a little bit on the live stream, but for everybody out there, tell them a little bit about your backstory. How did you get back into Pokemon? Because we mentioned this a little while ago, but a lot of us have a story from we all started collecting Pokemon when we were kids, and then maybe we got out of it for a little bit, and then there was usually like an event that brought us back in. For everybody out there watching this, feel free to share your story because you have one of the more interesting, more crazy stories in the history of this hobby, man.
Yeah, it's a little wild, and once again, I'll give everybody a trigger warning that does involve some kind of like crazy trauma to my body. So, yeah, so I started getting into Pokemon around the same time I think that like a lot of people in the community did. So it would have been 98 or 99, like when it hit like heavy duty in the schoolyard. It was like a wildfire. And yeah, it went from like collecting Pogs to then collecting Magic the Gathering, and then at the time there was that weird Star Wars TCG that was like that was kind of getting popular. I don't know like how big or far it even went. But then Pokemon came out and all everybody wanted was just Pokemon cards. So I got into it, but unfortunately I do come from an incredibly poor family, so I didn't get to open a ton of cards when I was a kid, but I did save quite a bit from when I was a kid as well. So I was one of those kids that didn't get a lot, but what I got, I took care of and I saved. And then yeah, over time, I got into really into Pokemon. Uh, but for me, it was always like started off with the video game. So the video game is what got me like heavy duty into the franchise, and then obviously that followed with like wanting to find like figures and trading cards and all that type of stuff. But yeah, over time, I just like kind of grew up a little bit, turned into a teenager, started partying and like just being a normal kid that puts down everything else. A lot of skateboarding. Skateboarding is my background. That's currently what I do for a living too. I work in the skateboarding industry. And yeah, I just wasn't I didn't get to really revisit it, although I didn't really leave it. Like I would always like kind of check back in, see what the new sets were, check out the art, maybe buy a couple packs every once in a while just for like instead of scratch and wins. I've never been big into like buying scratch and wins. I'd rather just buy a pack of Pokemon cards and
Yeah.
see what happens. But I didn't really get to like revisit it, even like part-time until I had my first kid. He was around when he started in school, so like kindergarten, grade 1. Started talking about Pokemon cards, and we started buying them together. And like, I would make sure that when he pulled something good, I would double sleeve it. It would go in a binder or go in like a screw down or like a top loader into a team bag, and just make sure that it was taken care of. Because I've always been a collector myself, and I know that like I wish that I had somebody that did that for me when I was younger, because my stuff that I saved wouldn't look like it was carried around in my pocket.
Which it was probably carried around in your pocket.
It definitely was. One of those cards I actually sent to PSA, so I'm actually pretty hyped to see how it comes back, but that's a different story. So yeah, he started wanting to collect stuff, so we started doing it together. And then when he was, I think he was maybe 8 or 9. It was 2017. I was riding my bike home from work, and I got ran over from the waist down by a semi truck, like a full semi truck and trailer. I spent the first 3 months in the ICU. I had 12 major fractures to my hips, a full lateral disruption of my sacrum, which is like the bone that holds your spine and your hips together. And then I had spinal cord damage as well. So I was paralyzed from like the belly button down for a considerable amount of time. Slowly had to learn how to walk again once I got some kind of like function in my legs back. And I just had so much time. I was in the hospital for the first stint for 9 months. So in between like watching all of like Modern Family on the internet or whatever, I was just like checking out Pokemon cards or going on the Pokemon forum and just checking stuff out. I had nothing but tons of time and a lot of bullshit and trauma to forget. So, and then once I was in a wheelchair and I could get like, I was out of the hospital and back, like had moved into my apartment and everything, I started just walking back down to my childhood Toys R Us that still is like, it's like, I live still in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. So I'm literally 3 blocks from the Toys R Us that I bought like my first copy of Pokemon for Game Boy, my first packs of base set and Jungle at. So like I'd go back there and just like breathe in the nostalgia and like buy a few packs. And then over time, I just I settled both of my cases from my injury, gave me a considerable amount of.
Uh-oh. Okay, I'm hoping it didn't just freeze again. Oh God, please tell me no. Oh no.
Oh, no, you're good.
Okay.
You just unfreezed. You unfreezed. You're good. You're good.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much how I got back into it. And then in regards to like finding everybody on the Discord, it was naturally when you get back into something and you go down the rabbit hole, you search for community. You don't want to be sitting there by yourself just like crying while you're opening a booster box, like. So I found Mike's videos on YouTube, specifically the How It's Made one. I thought it was awesome that somebody finally did that. Started watching his content, and then I found the Discord. Started going to happy hour, and if anybody here isn't part of the happy hour, please join us. It's one of the greatest groups of people I think I've ever been introduced to in my life. The wealth of knowledge that is shared in there is it's unparalleled. Also, the people that I've met more people in there that I'm confident I'll be friends with for the rest of my life than I think any other community. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what we started talking about a little bit was, why do you think it is that it takes like sometimes traumatic events, or we mentioned it before we had a little bit of that lag issue where like right during COVID, everybody started locking in. Then you had this huge group of people rediscovered Pokemon after a long time. And then obviously you had your traumatic injury, which we mentioned it like the last stream. It's your injury's way out here, like the quarantine's over here. So you suffered something way more tragic than anybody else. And then the way I re-entered Pokemon was I just happened to be working very far away from home, thousands of miles away in man camps in North Dakota, where like I was going to work but doing nothing when I came home and I rediscovered Pokemon. Why do you think that is a catalyst for so many people?
I think it's just nostalgia. Nostalgia is it's it's kind of the closest we get to that feeling of home. For your example, you are super far away from home. Nostalgia gives you that like wave of feeling like, like you're home, like you're where you're supposed to be, like you're in your safe place, like, before you grew up and the bullshit started in life. Yeah. So I think that the pandemic was everybody was all of a sudden faced with some pretty traumatic and like a pretty big upheaval to the way everybody lived. And I think that's exactly it. We search for something that's comforting, and nostalgia just happens to be incredibly comforting.
Yeah. No, I've always just found that amazing, and I just think that that's so weird that so many people have like some sort of major event that got them back into this hobby. So, but for everybody out there, I am wearing the Rage Quit shirt, and no, Rage, you do have your own merch, and I'm telling you right now, I feel like this shirt is actually a little bit too cool for me to wear. Like when I opened it up, I was like, I don't think I'm cool enough to wear this. But I really loved the design. And were you going for like a Venom feel to this? Because when I looked at it, it felt like right out of a Marvel comic, like the Venom, the whole writing style with like the cobwebs behind it and stuff.
So Venom is one of I'd say Venom and Carnage are my favorite Marvel characters, hands down. So like I've always gravitated towards that like kind of like web or like slime type look on almost everything. So when we did our black metal logo, I went to one of the largest dudes, like most famous guys in black metal. It's a guy named Keith Ellison, and I got him to do our logo. But I told him, I was like, I wanted to look like this band. They had a logo called Witch Vomit, and it was kind of like similar to that. It had like the webs kind of like on it or whatever. And I said, are you cool with doing something similar to this? And he said, yeah, I did the Witch Vomit logo, so like fuck it, let's do this. And yeah, it's kind of just supposed to be like a black metal logo. I was dating a girl that was super into black metal, and I love the aesthetic. I love black and white. I love like just like how gnarly it looks,
Yeah.
So we just wanted to do one. And yeah, I'm stoked that you're wearing the shirt, man. I love to like send clothes to like all my friends and just like drape them out. So yeah, like I'm lucky to have so many rad people in the community like even buy and wear my stuff. I am part of like the Kendama community, and Kendama is, I don't know if a lot of people know, but.
And if anybody out there is thinking like this is promoted, it's not. Rage is a cool dude. He sent me this shirt. I wanted to talk about it. So don't.
I'm not even going to say my website because I'm not big on self promotion. If you guys want to find it, you'll find it. You can DM me. It's not a big deal.
Please say your website name. I'm asking you to say it.
Okay. It's ragequitsucks.com. So it's part of the Kendama community, and Kendama is a Japanese thing. It was invented in feudal Japan. It's a drinking game that Ronin used to play, and it's essentially just like a ball, or the tama, and the ken, which is like 2 cups and a spike, and it's for hand-eye coordination. So as opposed to like in China, you'd see people practicing Tai Chi in the morning for hand-eye coordination. You see most people in Japan practicing Kendama. Oh. So I got super into this at about the same time that I got into Pokemon, and I felt like I wanted to start a little t-shirt company. Well, it kind of started naturally, honestly. I started making shirts just for my friends. People started asking for them. I made a few extras, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And yeah, now we do all right. It's pretty fun. I definitely wanted to like get to the point where I was sending packages to Japan, and I'm at that point. So,
dude, that's awesome.
More than happy. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for wearing the stuff. I just like every time I see somebody wearing a shirt that I designed or something along those lines, I'll
probably be wearing this in a lot of lives from now on. So, and black always works good with these lives. But this is a Pokemon chat, so we'll bring it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So what have your feelings been on the market? Because obviously you're so active in Rattle's Discord, and I know you probably don't keep like super hyper engaged in the day, but when you're this active in the Discord, it's almost impossible to not stay active in a way, right?
It's hard to not see almost everything, yeah.
Especially when leaks come out and somebody posts in general chats throughout so many different Discords, it's just impossible. But so bring me back to because just as much as I love to hear people's backstory in this hobby, I love to hear people's perspectives of 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
because it was a roller coaster. So bring us back to
Oh.
your perspective of 2020, 2021, and just watching like this hobby that you loved just explode into something
So I
different.
feel like I got a pretty good litmus of like what the market was doing, because I got back in right at the end of XY. So like I saw Sun and Moon, I saw how like kind of like it wasn't like, growing back up. Like Pokemon was still technically in a bit of a slump back then. And then the pandemic hit and everybody just needed to like do a couple lines of nostalgia. So it just exploded and got to the point where like I had to just like kind of hunt harder for Pokemon cards. It really reminded me of like buying Jordans, like sneakers. It's like everybody's just lined up, everybody's like trying to fight each other for it, and it went nuts. But that's kind of when I started getting like farther and farther into Japanese Pokemon cards, and like that kind of was like a bit of a sanctuary for a lot of people, because nobody wanted, like, people didn't want Japanese. Like even at the beginning of the pandemic, it was not as big. Like there was the odd waifu card that was like here or there, or like some older stuff, but for the most part, like you can buy base set vintage for so cheap in Japanese.
Yeah.
Like it's never really gotten to the crazy amount.
Yeah,
So
in comparison, yeah.
when that, I got pretty pissed off when that started to stonk around V-Star Universe. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect example. How much is that card even worth?
Raw $20, you know?
Exactly. It's rad. You can buy awesome cards and they look so, like, I love the way Japanese base set looks. The holo is more vivid, the colors are more rich and dark, it just
Yep.
I know I'm sounding like one of those people right now, but yeah. Anyways, around V-Star Universe is when like the gig was up. Like, even my Japanese guy who would hook me up was asking for an extra like $50 a box, like just a ridiculous amount. And I got pretty pissed. You can ask like Billy and Mike and Ultra and like everybody. Like I was fucking livid because I was planning on buying a couple cases of that set and just like throwing them away. Like I love V-Star Universe / Crown Zenith is what I think like is probably the best set in Sword and Shield, which is just my opinion. Don't get all crazy in the comments.
No, I think there's validity to that. So,
but now I'm actually really hyped where the English market has gone with like the new base set for Scarlet and Violet. You can buy all of these cards for pennies on the dollar, and like the most expensive card is what, like $100, and I think that's the way it should always be.
Yeah,
like let things appreciate before we go ape wild, like, and just like let it happen naturally.
Yeah,
So instead of just like Moonbryons.
Yeah, so when you were seeing all these prices, were you kind of stepping back, or were you thinking about selling your stuff too? Because you had talked about like picking up some stuff as maybe investments, but you were definitely heavier onto the collector side of it. And a lot of things you were doing is just, you were opening a lot of stuff just for the enjoyment of the pack opening experience. Did you start to look at prices and start to look at your collection and some of your pieces and say, maybe I should sell some of this stuff? Or were you kind of not doing that?
So, truth be told, like I went through a pretty rough breakup about a year ago, and I lost a lot of my sealed collection to that, just because I was so depressed that opening Pokemon cards was like the only thing that made me feel. So I just like ran through my closet and I opened a lot of stuff. It was pretty brutal, but I think for me, the strategy always for me has just been to hold as long as possible. So for example, like this thing, like a lot of people would have sold this gym box when it got to, I don't even know how much it is right now. Like let's say hypothetically $1,500. I paid $500 for this. Most people would have probably sold at around 1,000, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to hold on to this thing for a decade and just see where it goes.
Yeah.
I might not make any money, but that's investing, you know? And I could get into flipping. Once you have the money, you can be that guy. You can be the guy that goes to Costco and wheels away the entire pallet,
But
I don't like that guy.
That guy though. Because
Yeah, I
then
don't
you're on
really
a
like
rattle
that
video.
guy. I understand it, and like all the power to you, man. Like no hate, but like that's not my game. Like I'm
Yeah.
the type of guy. Like for example, I went to an LCS not that long ago. They had a bunch of Evolving Skies packs. I was just gonna buy some. I know buying loose packs it's dumb. Don't do that. But I was buying a bunch of packs, and there was a kid beside me, and the guy was like, "Oh, do you just want all of them?" And I looked at the kid and I was like, "Do you want to buy any of these?" And he was like, "No, I'm after another set." And then I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll take half of them." Like I don't want to ever be that guy because like I have kids. I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I understand that there's gonna be a person after me, and it's not just about making money. It's about the experience. It's about the community. It's about so much more than just like making $4 extra or something like that, or like even just buying them all to like pull a specific card. I just try to take like maybe just take a step back at times and just realize that there's other people in the community and in the hobby as well. But yeah, that's just
No,
try to be kind.
honestly, man, that's a great answer. And I know you too, and I know that's just how you are. You are just like super kind person, and you're super caring. But one of the things you just mentioned when you were talking, you said community, and when I think of Pokemon, like that's one of the big things that always comes to mind is community, but also like growth of this hobby and trajectory of this hobby and
Exactly.
long term sustainability of this hobby. And I don't
Hmm.
think you have growth and long term sustainability if you don't have a community. So how
Exactly.
important do you think that community aspect is for the growth of the hobby?
It's everything. It's literally everything. So, for example, one could argue that my action in the community by trying to consider other people will just end up making my investments better by growing the community.
Mm,
Like the more people there are, the more interest there is, the better things get for literally everywhere. I know that there's the argument too that the more people come into the community, the more it's going to be harder to get product or whatever. They're gonna print more Pokemon cards.
definitely.
Like
Yeah.
they're not gonna just look at the numbers and be like, you know what, we should dial things back from here, guys. Like that's never gonna happen. Like
Yeah.
so I think it's the best thing that we can do to try and propagate community is just be kind to kids, like save up your bulk for kids or like even like what I've been planning to do. I have so much bulk.
Yeah.
I think close to 90,000 pieces if I had to take an estimate, maybe 100,000.
Yeah.
Like a full closet just stacked. Like probably a half a pallet of just bulk.
Yeah.
So my plan to do with that is like I don't even know where to begin to sell it. I don't want to sort it. I don't want
Yeah.
to deal with it. My thought is maybe give it to like a couple teachers and they can like start like a Pokemon card program and to teach kids how to learn Pokemon cards or find somebody who's doing that actively and
Yeah.
then give them the inventory to build decks for kids.
Yeah.
Make it a little bit easier for people to like, actually get into the hobby and actually like I'll be brutally and 100% honest with you. I don't even really like grasp a lot of like how like I watch Alex and Mike and Ultra and everybody play the actual card game, and it's pretty confusing for me. Like I get swept away pretty quick, so I tend to not play because it's just too. I know it's a game for children and it makes me look really, really dumb, but that's just the fact of the matter. So like I'd rather find somebody that's doing that type of stuff and try and give it to them and just build the community, Like it's literally everything for small for I guess I wouldn't call this a small hobby at this point. It's pretty
Yeah.
big, but
Well, that's the thing too is, Pokemon is definitely a small hobby if you're looking at it through sometimes our lenses. And our lenses
Mhm.
is the super actively engaged. Like, we know every card that's coming out in a new set before it's even released sometimes. And we're seeing the print factory shipping it to the shredding company, and then we're seeing the leaks that way. We're very like narrow viewed because the large majority of this hobby have no clue. There is a majority or a subsection of people in this hobby who the first time they ever see the cards in a set is they're literally sitting at home, bought their ETB or loose packs, and they're opening those packs for the first time, and they've never seen a leak because they're not this actively engaged. But with that said, a
I don't
lot
know if
of
I could do that.
yeah, right. But I think that is like a natural progression for a lot of people is you have to learn to like crawl before you could walk, before you could run,
Yeah.
before you could sprint. And I
Mm.
think that because this hobby always was in a way like a younger person's hobby, but now we've matured out of that, and this hobby has matured from like a kid's game into something different, and it has an ability to be two things at one time. One, it can be something like adults could collect on a higher end, but you can also at the same time have kids collect this game on a lower end. And
Yep.
I'm very interested to see, like, because we were part of that original 99 generation. I
Yeah.
want to see what happens when the kids that were part of the 2002 and 2006 and 2012 and 2019 generations. What happens when they reach their 30s? Like, is it going to exponentially get bigger? Because are we just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to like the potential of this hobby, right? Like, is it just because our generation was the first one to reach their 30s and we just happen to have a leg up on anybody because of just age demographics? But given another 10 years, all the kids that are younger now, maybe in high school, all get through college and make it into their income
Yeah.
potential ages. Like, what do you think about that potential?
I think it's kind of like the snowball theory, but it definitely takes time to age. So like I feel like we all have, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that everybody almost goes through that period of like they get into it and then they get out of it and then they get back into it. So I feel like that's totally it right there. Is that um I
Yeah.
totally forgot what I was talking
No, I'm
about.
sorry. I just looked down on the chat. People are saying my mic is a little lower, so I'm trying to like jack it up a little bit. No, but we were just talking about like that newer age demographic, like moving into their income
So
earning
I feel
years,
like it's the snowball theorem, but it definitely takes time to age. Like like everybody goes through that period where you got to be a teenager, and like as much as like I wasn't really a cool teenager, I spent most of my time in the art room, like playing Game Boy, which specifically a lot of Pokemon. But yeah, once I got to be like a teenager, I got out of it. So I feel like it's just once those people that like even the 2019 generation, they'll go through that. They'll go through like their early 20s and then maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, they'll want that hit of nostalgia. Life starts to come at you really fast. It starts maybe sucking a little bit. You need a little bit of, a little bit of daddy nostalgia.
yeah.
Bring you home. Make you feel safe and warm again. So I think that's exactly it. I think that it's just going to exponentially get bigger and bigger. But can you imagine us all like 80 years old sitting there?
It's funny. It's funny you say that because I think about that question all the time. I ask the question is, do you think that the younger generation gets into this hobby? But then I also in the back of my head think, does it get to the point where we grow out of this hobby too? You almost think it's not possible because if we've already had that period of time where you've grown out of this hobby. And I think you mentioned it earlier, like going through high school and maybe chasing girls or whatever, like just that normal like progression of growing up. But then do you get to a point then when you're in your 50s or 60s and you're like, I don't know about Pokemon anymore?
Our generation is literally the guinea pig for this. So maybe like when I'm 50, I'll be like go through a midlife crisis and sell my Pokemon cards and buy a Corvette. And like, I don't know. Probably not. I feel like I'm pretty like, I feel like once you're into something in your late 30s and you've like invested in it, you're probably going to do that for the rest of your life. It's like the model train dudes, you know?
Yeah. That's a
like,
good way to put it. Like that, all those people just kind of grew up,
Yeah, and even the people that didn't get back into it in their like 30s or whenever, and later on in life, we'll say, the second act, if you will, then they just won't. That's just something they did. Some people just like they grow up and they can just never be, a bit of a kid again. Me, I'm horrifically immature, so. I'm super into it. Sign me up. Like I play I'm gonna get off this podcast and go play Minecraft. I'm 38 years old. you know, like I got no shame in that. It's just is what it is. And I think that it's people exactly like me that are willing to go and spend their Saturday afternoon sitting in a Discord call talking about shiny cardboard with a bunch of other dudes their exact same age, or females as well. So like you're women. Pardon me. Sound like an absolute incel right now, but
Or you like, who are the only really older people in this hobby? And like, one of the people that stick out to a lot of people is like Gary King Pokemon and his Charizard collection. The only difference is
he's a great example.
Yeah, but the only difference is he was collecting with his kids, and so he was the one buying the cards for his kids. But yet he, for whatever reason, and I still will never. I mean, I kind of know, but like, he stuck with it throughout the years until eventually, and like rode the highs and lows and just kept acquiring like a ridiculous amount of product. Like, people don't really understand how much he truly had. But yeah, in 30 years from now, are we just a bunch of Gary King Pokemons sitting at Collecticons, a bunch of old dudes at the table, and everybody looks at us like, oh God, look at those. Those are the old timers, like.
Sign me up, man. Yeah. I would love to be like full, like, I feel old. Okay. I know like somebody in their 50s or 60s would be like, shut up.
Yeah.
But I feel old, and like, I'm fine with being that dude. Gary's a great example. Like, I definitely can relate to that too, because I collected with my kids.
Yeah.
And when my kid, my eldest son is 15, he doesn't want to even look at Pokemon cards right now. But best believe I still have his entire collection, and it is still flawless.
Yeah.
So, for example, like this shiny Umbreon promo. Okay. It's the box that I bought him. It's sitting on my desk now. Like, as long as he, that's another. Let's get a lesson. Pokemon could be a great lesson to teach your children how to take care of things.
Yeah. No,
to not just be hard on things. To like see value in stuff, beyond just showing it to your friends in the schoolyard.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's gonna be very different, that I'm gonna be interested to see how it plays out, is when we got back into Pokemon, or not back in, when we got into Pokemon in 99, Pokemon was not a cross-generational game at that point. It was literally, yes, with the exception of the one person in the world, Gary, King Pokemon, excluding him, all other people, it's a single-generation game. It's just kids.
Yeah.
But now, what you just talked about with your kid, it's now cross-generational, and given enough time, your son could have a son, and then it could be 3 generations long, and does it change when something becomes cross-generational? Because when I look back on certain things that I collected or bought, a lot of the reasons I bought, and even some music I listen to, the music I listen to is because my mom or my dad played that band in the car growing up, and I like that song. So does it same thing move into Pokemon, where because it's now cross-generational, and maybe your son experienced it with his dad, so now it's not just a memory of playing on the playground with his friends, open up Pokemon cards. It now is a memory tied to his father. Like, does that change 100%. The entire dynamic?
I think it does. I think it 100% changes the dynamic, because when something's like tied to like a very special memory like that, like some of my best memories with my son when he was younger was like opening Pokemon cards and like collecting and like, just talking, like watching old episodes of like season 1, and like showing him stuff that I was really hyped on when I was his age. Yeah. So, and I think it does change it. It 100% changes, because something could be multi-generational, but when it's shared like amongst friends and family, it becomes not only nostalgic, but becomes sentimental. Yeah. And I think that adds a completely different layer to things.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've honestly never really thought about it like that. And that's deep. Dog. Yeah, no. That's based.
It's something we don't talk about that enough, though, because I think a lot of people sometimes get a little too focused on like the dollar amounts or stuff like this, but like that is a real thing, like the cross-generational, cross-generationality, or however you want to phrase it. But I'm curious how it plays out, and
I think it just keeps going. I mean, honestly, Pokemon could have lasted a year. It could have been a complete flop. They could have pulled it out of North America. They could have never, it could have just been completely different, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a very, very tasteful and thought out story and like game and everything. Like you can there's so much choice within, like, I know 151 seems like small at this point,
Yeah.
considering how much is out there in the world, but back then that was a lot of choice, and you could be different just by your choice of Pokemon in the schoolyard.
True.
Like I was always a Gengar fan.
There you go.
Gengar wasn't wildly popular in first gen.
Yeah.
Like there was a few people that were into it, but it was like mostly Charizard, Bulbasaur, like actual Gen 1 Pokemon that people were like fawning over. It wasn't until like later on, and honestly like probably closer to like maybe Neo, or even for Sun and Moon for some people, that Gengar started gaining traction.
Yeah. It wasn't until in the anime they started building a Gengar story arc too, or like giving him some kind of backstory. Like the original Ghastly Haunter Gengar, like Haunter was the Pokemon everybody kind of flocked to because he was like the comical guy, right? Like the jokester.
Yeah.
And then
like looks a little bit cooler, I guess, too.
Yeah, and he has like the big tongue and stuff, and it's just like,
yeah.
But then Gengar eventually got his story arc with like the trainer who just abandoned him and said, "Okay, Gengar, wait here, I'll come back for you," and then never does. And then
never does. That's a great episode, honestly.
It's a super sad episode.
One of the best. Well, there's also that, like, what was his name? Damien or whatever? The guy who like just abandons the Charizard to die in the rain.
Yeah, the Charmander, yeah.
The Charmander, yeah. They know how to tug at your heartstrings hard.
Yeah.
In that anime for sure. Yeah, no, I think it's exactly that. Like, it just takes time for specific Pokemon to get their shine. I think that hopefully, I got my fingers crossed that because there's Seviper and Zangoose in the new generation, and they're kind of trying to do something with that. I hope to God we get some full art cards. Zangoose has never had a full art card, and it's one of I'd say in my top 3 Pokemon. Easy.
I would say that you would be hard pressed to find somebody that could say Zangoose was in their top 3 favorite Pokemon. So
why? He's so well designed. He looks like like he's got like the David Bowie-esque
No, it's a cool Pokemon, but top 3, I would say that is a stretch, with the exception of you.
My main Pokemon that I play with in most of the games, if they're in there, like Scarlet and Violet, my main Pokemon was Zangoose, shiny Zangoose. I just think it's such a cool looking Pokemon that never gets any love, and it's Gen 2 or 3. Never remember. Gen 2, I think.
I couldn't even tell you. Not sure.
But yeah, and then on top of that, there's like, how many other Pokemon are out there that have like an arch nemesis? There's only a few.
Yeah.
So I think they need to do something.
Yeah. You did mention it just a little bit ago, and I kind of want to talk about it real quick. You said some animes or some TV shows do have abilities to like pull at your heartstrings. I know it's not a Pokemon related one, but I want to ask you, are you a Futurama fan at all? Did you watch Futurama? Okay. Did I like
I'm a huge Futurama fan.
Okay.
Let's just say
because I want to talk about the
Scooty
saddest
Jr.
episode in history of all television. That's the one where
with the dog?
With the dog. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's exactly it. The Ash's Gengar right there. That's the story.
Yeah, but it's like
sits there waiting.
It's like Fry's dog. So for anybody out there, like, it's not a huge spoiler. Listen, you've had like 2 decades at this point to watch Futurama, but
and no excuses because it's amazing.
Yeah. So in the future, like, obviously Futurama takes place 1,000 years in the future, and they discover Fry's dog from when he gets like sent to the future, when he gets frozen. And the dog's fossilized in dolomite, and the professor goes, "I have the like technology to bring your dog back." And Fry goes, how did the dog die? And they say, "Well, the dog died of old age." And he looks at the dog and he goes, "You know what? He died of old age, and he probably moved on and he forgot about me, so don't bring him back." And then they go back to the past, and you see that the dog every single day went to that pizza restaurant and stood outside in the snow, in the rain, in the sleet, in the cold, in the heat, just waiting for Fry to return from his delivery. And Fry never comes back, and then the dog ends up dying of old age and a broken heart. It is the saddest. Like, it tugs at your heartstrings, man.
Oh no, totally. Futurama was one of the greatest animated shows of all time. To the point where, like, what, it got canceled 3 times.
Yeah.
They kept bringing it back.
It did get
Oh.
like 3 times canceled.
Yeah, but it's phenomenal. If anybody here hasn't actually watched all of it, it's Matt Groening. It's done by the same guys as The Simpsons. You should definitely check it out. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Pokey
I'm
Snake
glad-
says an
I'm-
animated Hachi. So
What's a Hachi?
I've never seen that movie, but my wife woke me up one day and like bawling her eyes out, like, I just watched the saddest movie on Amazon, and it's called Hachi, and it's the same thing. Like, this dog every day would walk to the train station with his owner, and then the owner, and this is based on a true story, and then the owner got on a train and like went to work and died of a heart attack or something. Either way, he never made it back. So every day the dog would go to the train station waiting for his owner, and the owner never came. And like, I guess in one of the Japanese train stations there's a statue of this dog because that's like a true story. Super sad though.
That is heartbreaking. Jesus. We're making everybody cry.
Yeah, no,
Everybody's just
sorry
like-
everybody out there, trying to keep this a happy thing. But
Especially with dogs. Dogs are so sacred. I love them so much.
yeah, dogs are one of those few animals that are just they're just perfect, and it's just sad that you have sometimes like such a short amount of time with dogs. Like, it's a sad thing, but
Well, on a happier note,
Yes.
what's your top 3? Speaking of top 3s.
so my top 3 Pokemon is pretty boring, and number 1 is like Raichu, because that was my favorite Pokemon growing up, and it just always stuck with me. And then number 2 was Mew, and the reason why I like Mew is because when I was in the Pokemon Game Boy, in the Pokemon League at Toys R Us, one of the promotions they had was how to like obtain the Mew. You had to go on a certain day. It's actually right there, the Nintendo winner's instruction right there. That was how you claimed your Mew at Toys R Us, and it shows you what you had to do. Come in, you would like bring your Game Boy with you, and then they had a Game Boy that just had tons of Mews, and that's how I was finally able to get my Mew, and I thought it was so cool. Like, I had a Mew on my Game Boy. All my friends had heard, like, you got to go to this truck next to...
Dude, that was, it was a huge, like, it was a, everybody was, like, hearsay through
hearsay.
children.
Yep.
Totally, but we all tried.
And then
spent hours trying.
But I had a Mew, and like none of my friends had a Mew, and then by that point I'd already like played through Blue, and all my Pokemon were super high level, but then I had to like make this Mew just some crazy strong Pokemon. So because of that, and because also one of my first promos I ever got was that Mew promo from the Pokemon League, the non-holo version. I didn't stick around the league long enough to make it to the holo version, but we never got a Mew. At least when I say we, I'm talking early WotC collectors, because by the time Expedition came out and we actually did get that first Mew in the card game, I was already out of Pokemon by that point. I got out of Pokemon like maybe Team Rocket, and I always say maybe is because like when I went through my binder as a kid, I had a couple cards, but I don't even remember opening that pack. I'm not sure how I got them. But so Mew's probably my number 2, and then number 3, man, I don't know, that's tough.
It's almost easier to do a top 5 with Pokemon just because of the how many.
See, this is the sucky part of that question, right? Is because to say that like any of the starters, or to say Pikachu, or any of the obvious answers is kind of like a cop-out, right? To say like, well, Pikachu's one of my favorite Pokemon because I watched the show growing up. Like, people played Pokemon Yellow. People did this. Like, when I opened Pikachu's as a kid, that was exciting. Like, I feel like that's a huge cop-out to do, right?
Yeah.
And then all the big 3 to say, like, Blastoise, Venusaur, Charizard, like, that's a cop-out. And then, so I would say, like, maybe my number 3 would be... Man, this is tough. Like,
you can always revise in the future. It's not set in stone.
like I like the thought of Mewtwo as I got older, right? I didn't love the thought of Mewtwo when I was younger, right? Because when I
Mhm.
was younger, I always thought of Mewtwo as like this genetic creature who was just a dick, wanted to like kill humankind and all this stuff. And like he was the antagonist in the Pokemon movie. He was the bad guy. He was the one that was so strong opposed to everybody else. It wasn't until I got older that I like understood the suffering that was behind Mewtwo. Like
Mhm.
he was created in a tube by Giovanni. He was abused. He was manipulated for his powers. Like he was like restrained. They wanted it's like the worst story, you know, like abusive story. And then he only knows humans as being these bad people because of what he was created to be. And then it wasn't until he met Ash and then he realized, wait, all humans aren't pieces of garbage.
Mhm.
Some trainers are willing to sacrifice their life, and that was when like Ash sacrifices himself and
Yeah.
turns to Ash, and then Mewtwo brings him back, and
That is, I think, the saddest moment in
that
all of Pokemon when he gets turned to stone or whatever, and the
yes,
tears of the Pokemon bring him back.
bring him
That's
back.
pretty.
But
Yeah.
like I like Mewtwo when I'm older because of that storyline, right? Like, wait, now Mewtwo's like in a way good, or at least he understands that maybe not all humans are bad and stuff. So it took me a long time to get to that point in my life. So it's a tough question though. But I always liked Jolteon growing up, so maybe like Jolteon's in my top three too. Cause
It's off on a complete tangent
yeah,
about
just
Mewtwo, and then it's just like
back to Jolteon.
just Jolteon, fuck it.
Yeah, just fuck it. Fuck it. But see, this is a problem, right? Like we're doing this live in front of 60 people. This is how conversations just go, guys. Like you're talking,
Yeah.
you're just bullshitting. You could be all over the place, but
I'm going with Gengar,
yeah.
clearly because I have him like tattooed on me, and like Gengar. But I feel like even me saying Gengar is a bit of a cop out, you know. And then we'll go like Zangoose, definitely. You can put him in 2 or 3, doesn't really matter. And then from there, I'm probably gonna go. I think I'm gonna have to go. I think I'm gonna have to go Mimikyu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Mimikyu's
definitely.
in my top. Mimikyu's my new favorite modern Pokemon. Again, because of story arcs for him.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited to see what they do with Tinkaton because that's my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon.
Okay.
But I also really love Morpeko. Morpeko's my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon, and then Mimikyu's my favorite Gen 8 Pokemon. So
Yeah,
they've done a good job with every gen, in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people hate, but I've found Pokemon that I genuinely love in almost every single generation. So
yeah, so I did see on your Instagram you got a couple Pokemon tattoos. So I would have thought like the Pokemon you got tattooed on you would be in your top. I think I saw one. It was like you had like a shining Charizard you tattooed on yourself, and then the Dragonite, like the original. Yeah, there you go, shining Charizard, and then the original Dragonite artwork from Fossil, like the yeah, that's as OG of Dragonite artwork as you can
yeah.
get. So I
And then
thought
like
maybe those were-
I have Morpeko in hangry mode there. I have him in regular mode there. I've got Pikachu and Mimikyu there. I've got an Emolga tattoo. Got a
dude,
Molga here. I've got a Toxel somewhere. I've got a bunch. I forget how many I have. Honestly, I have a bunch of Pokemon tattoos.
that's how you know you really love it, man, when you're getting the Pokemon tattoos.
Yeah, sometimes I like remember. I'll be like, "Oh shit, yeah, I do have that tattooed on me. That's rad." I'm probably gonna get another one. Like, hey, chat, tell me which Pokemon I should get next. You think I should get Zangoose or should I get like I don't know, maybe a Tinkaton
We could
that has like a banner underneath that says Hammer Time or something? Yeah.
we
You guys choose my next tattoo. Get it going. A little community interaction.
that'll be the first we could do. Choose the tattoo.
I mean, I'm pretty covered. It's not like, it's not like you guys are going to choose something that's super mangled. It's a Pokemon.
Kevin,
I could get any Pokemon tattooed on me, and I can't think of a Pokemon that I'd be really that bummed about having on me. Maybe Arctovish, any of the Vishes. I probably wouldn't want that tattoo, but
so we got the tattoo, or the people said Piplup, Shining Zangoose, a Magmar. Ooh, an armored Mewtwo tat. That's pretty sick.
That's a great idea, honestly. An armored Mewtwo one.
I think
Zangoose is criminally underrated.
Rattle might have the best comment. He said,
Zangoose
fighting a Survivor tramp stamp.
I got space back there. I could totally do that. Just for you, Mike. You have tramp stamp for Zaddy.
Yeah, a lot of people saying Zangoose and Survivor. Yeah.
Done.
Why do a lot of people saying that right now?
The goose, man. The goose is loose. People need to realize that Zangoose is an amazing Pokemon, and he's criminally underrated. Criminally underrated and underrepresented in the TCG. And that needs to change ASAP. We need full arts, like art cards. Give us like something cool, where's the hate? Yeah. Why?
The last one is Kevin Clare said Butterfree. You could do the Be Free Like a Butterfree one.
What is that, like a Facebook quote or something?
No, that's just like that's like an old quote from actually the first podcast I had with Rattle and Ryan. We were talking about we were talking about old Pokemon episodes, and Ryan said that his favorite one was the Butterfree can go out and like date the other Butterfree or like be with the other Butterfree, but the way Ryan phrased it was sometimes you gotta be free like a Butterfree so you could go fuck other Butterfrees. And when he said that, like, dude, I laughed so hard. And then I brought it up to him like months later, and I was like, yeah, to be free like a Butterfree so you could fuck other Butterfrees, right, Ryan? And he's like, oh, that's really funny, or something like that. I was like, dude,
doesn't remember it at all.
Yeah, he doesn't remember.
So I'm like the eighth Scotch neat, and just like doesn't remember coming up with amazing shit.
Amazing shit, yeah.
Sounds about right for Ryan. I don't know him well, but I fucking love that dude. He is hilarious.
Ryan's good,
and he's always the dude that like. I'm one of those people that I feel like I'm always the guy that like maybe like says like, hey, you shouldn't do that, or hey, that's not nice. I feel like he does it in such an amazingly and like tactful way where he's
yeah.
I got a lot of respect for that dude. He's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Not to mention his content's really good too.
Yeah. No.
Shout out Ryan.
Ryan's a very impressive person, you know.
He's just so nonchalant about shit too, to the point where it's like hilarious. So
yeah. Well, like when I talk to you in private and stuff, like that's one of the very similar to the way I feel about Ryan is the way I feel about you. Is like I always look for the smartest people in the room or the people that like understand what's going on, and like Ryan always knows what's going on, and you're the same way, man. Like you guys always know what's going on, and I think both you guys share those traits. That you're just
I appreciate that. Hey, being compared to Ryan is a great thing in my personal opinion. That guy's he's a sharp cookie. So
yeah,
I appreciate that.
Pokedama said a Magikarp inside of a ramen bowl is pretty hilarious too.
Oh, dude, that what that reminds me of? That reminds me of when they did the like, the Korean carp dish where they just like cut the flesh and like ribbon it or whatever, and they're like have him and Brock drooling over it.
Yep.
That was eating Pokemon.
I think they like got rid of that scene. Like you can still find it online, but I don't think it's in the show anymore. Like they tried to not show eating Pokemon.
Scrubbed it.
Yeah, like they scrubbed it from the internet, or
There's other instances of eating Pokemon though, isn't there?
Wait,
like what the fuck is an Alcremie?
It's an ice cream. I don't like a whipped cream. Yeah.
So. Just ultra PK. Blink twice if you need help.
No, the reason why is I blink so much is because I'm in my basement, and my basement was so dark. Like it's disgustingly dark. So in order to like get the lighting I need, I just got these huge lights that shine in my face. Like
I'm the same. I'm always like squinting because I'm just staring into a giant. Oh wow, you got like fluorescent light.
Yeah.
So that's like taking a Walmart to the face.
Yeah. So those things shine in my face nonstop in order to like get the lighting to come on me. So it's directly above my camera. So it just blinds me all the time. So I blink all the fucking time, and I just can't help it because of those lights, man.
Break out your Pokemon branded Visine, a little squirt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm back. Good to the go. Good to go.
But like you'll see.
My favorite thing about you, though, I know this is kind of off topic, but my favorite thing about you, man, is the amount of like wild old nostalgic shit that you have and then remember too. It's so awesome.
Yeah. No, I think everybody has like different types of memories, and like I always say, I have a way to remember stuff where I compartmentalize stuff, and like I compartmentalize it by like tying it to other memories. And like this is a problem too, is like you open up one door and you open up another door, and then you open up all these doors in your head, and you're like, how did I get to this point I'm at right now? And you're just like, oh boy.
Well, because like your background right now is like, it's like a perfectly curated piece of my childhood.
Yeah.
Like, like every aspect of it.
Yeah. So most, if not all this stuff, not all of it, but most, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's not from my childhood, like those sealed VHSs and stuff. There's Terminator 2, GoldenEye's in the middle, and then Jurassic Park. And then...
Oh yeah, we've talked about Terminator.
Yeah. So then
Possibly one of the greatest movies ever made.
So like Blues Brothers.
Yo!
This is Arnold Schwarzenegger, Eraser.
Eraser's a great movie.
Independence Day, come on. Can't go wrong with Independence Day.
Independence Day. True Lies is another amazing one. That scene where he's like, first I'm going to stab you in the neck, and then I'm going to kill that guy over there. You know, like,
yeah.
That's like one of the...
And he's like, how are you going to do that when you're handcuffed? And he's like, I picked the lock.
Yeah.
That's great.
So good. They don't make movies like they used to, in my personal opinion. But then it's funny, you go back and watch stuff like that, and it seems like really horribly done and super hokey, and you're like, this seemed like the best movie ever when I was 10.
Yeah.
So like that's one other thing that's amazing about Pokemon is like I didn't revisit it and be like, that doesn't seem as cool as I used to think it was. Like I revisited it and was like, shit, let's go. You know? Just it speaks to how like kind of magical our little mini hobby is.
Well, yeah. But speaking of movies that age really well, when you look back there and you see Jurassic Park is one of those very, very few movies that aged like wine. Like,
oh, dude, it's amazing.
It aged as well as possible. I remember they re-released it in 3D, and it was like scary when the raptor's like in the ceiling and jumps out. It was as if they made the movie for 3D.
Do you remember seeing that movie in theaters? You must
scared.
have been like the same age as me, like 8 or 9, something like that.
Yes, I was scared when that movie came out.
It was fucking terrifying, man. I had my eyes closed for most of that movie.
Yep. So I didn't watch it in the theaters, but I didn't own a big screen TV, but I had a friend that owned a big screen TV, and by big screen, it was one of those big box one that had like the projector lamp on the inside of it. Thing probably weighed like 7 tons. It was huge, but I was in their basement watching it because like everyone knew it was like a huge thing, and they had like Bose surround sound. Just they were like the cool people to have, watch movies at their house, and I was watching it, and I was freaking scared from the beginning of that movie to the end of that movie. Dude, man.
That movie and Arachnophobia.
Oh, yep, that was a scary one too.
That movie fucked me up as a kid. Holy shit. I still get in the shower and I'm like, like, fuck.
So, another scene from a movie that used to scare me is Ninja Turtles, the original movie, the one where Splinter like came out of the fire and talked to the turtles. When I was a kid, that scene scared me so much that I would know when it came up, and I would fast forward it on the VCR and with like my eyes closed, so I wouldn't have to watch that scene. I was so scared.
That's another movie that I saw in theaters and was a big part of, like, movies were so, like, I feel like they were more important culturally back then to like kids, at least. Like, going to see all those movies was like such a big deal, and then you talk about it at school. It was similar to how like Pokemon kind of blows up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like those memories are literally burned into my brain.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember so much important shit, but I know I can remember almost everything about like when I went to go see Jurassic Park or when I went to go see the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is a terrible, terrible
Yeah.
movie, but was like so epic when you were a kid, you know?
Yeah,
That
no,
movie did not age like Jurassic Park though.
I think a lot of it has to do too is it was just a different time. Like kids now, in a way, they're so spoiled when it comes to movies. Like at the tip of their fingertip is the entire
They're
movie
desensitized.
library of everything. You go on Disney Plus as a kid today, it's every Disney's movie ever created forever. When we were a kid, it was your parents bought you that one or two Disney movie in your Disney clamshell.
Yep.
And you watched that thing 1,000 times because you didn't have anything else to watch. You know, like
So many times.
dude, I remember one of the movies. I don't know why, but one of the movies I rewatched 100 times as a kid was Three Ninjas. Three Ninjas Kick Back. It was the second one where they go to Japan.
Yep.
Bro, I watched that movie.
Dude, I watched that. Those two movies a lot too. Like the original Three Ninjas and Three Ninjas Kickback, and then there was a third one as well. And then for some weird reason, Surf Ninjas as well with Rob Schneider. I don't know why I watched that movie so many times as a kid. But yeah, no, it's just like certain things. It's like it's burned into my brain forever now, literally forever. Some of those experiences. Even like the first Pokemon movie. That was huge. That was 2000. It was like it was a year out, and everybody was like, "Oh, when are they going to make a movie?" Because honestly, franchises almost kind of back then they felt like they hadn't made it until the movie came out. You know, like for example, like we'll take Stranger Things as an example. If Stranger Things was made in like the late 90s, early 2000s, all everybody would be talking about was when's the movie coming out? When's the movie coming out? When's the movie coming out?
Yeah.
And I feel like what finally broke that was the Simpsons movie. Everybody was kind of like, really?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right too. There was like a big hype that led up. You remember the X-Files movie? Everybody was like, "Oh, this is going to be so good. It's going to be so good." And then the movie came out and it was like, this sucks. It's kind of very mediocre, you know?
Yeah.
And like movies like that kind of killed it for the TV show hype, you know?
Yeah, and so the Pokemon movie was a big deal, and it was pretty good. I personally like the second one better with Lugia because the story behind that and the guy who like invented Lugia and made that movie and how he like drank himself to death because he didn't like the creative direction it was going in, and you know, like like Pokemon's got some cool shit, some cool history behind it for sure. And like,
well, Pokemon the third movie, I mentioned it in one of my previous lives and like how it was a mediocre movie, and somebody commented was like, "What are you talking about? That's a great movie." And in my head I was like, you know what, there's probably somebody out there that was the one movie they owned and they rewatched 100 times. So
exactly, like Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Summer Vacation. I have seen that movie probably 1,200 times.
Yeah.
And it's still like I think about it almost daily, like for fuck's sake. So like it's pretty wild how like, and that's the thing is like maybe that person who likes the third movie more got into Pokemon just a couple of years after us, and that was like the movie that came out and their big experience and everything. Like I always say, we're all just a bunch of Gen 1ers, I guess.
Yeah. Pokey Snipe said Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley is a classic. It's funny he says that. That's one of the few movies that you ever watch a movie and you just laugh like out loud, like you can't help it. Like I'll watch that movie and my wife will look at me and like, "Why are you laughing so loud?" And I'm like, "It's just so funny." My favorite scene of that movie is when he tells her to turn around and he's trying to hide and he's like, he can't figure out where to go. He just jumps into the wall. But then later he's shown her the sacred text and then he lights it on fire by accident. Dude, I laugh so hard every time I watch that scene. Like
Chris Farley's body language was like unlike any other comedian.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like even his like, "Don't do drugs. You'll end up in a van down by the river." He's just like, nobody can really, you know, there hasn't been a comedian like that since him.
Since him, yeah. he's one of those taken way too soon type people, and you just wonder what
Yeah.
could have been if he didn't pass away. Like what movies could have came out. Like one of my favorite SNL skits is his when it's the Folgers decaffeinated crystal one.
Yeah.
where like he's like, "Do you like the coffee?" He's like, "Yeah, it's good." And he's like, "Well, it's Folgers decaffeinated crystal." He's like, "You son of a bitch." And then he starts fighting everyone, and then the chef comes and they're hitting him in the head with the frying pan, like to try to make him stop. Dude, Chris Farley was one of the best. And then afterwards,
hands
he's all
down one of
messed
the
up.
best.
He's got the neck brace on, and he's got like the black eye and the stuff around his head, and he's like, "Yeah, I guess that was a funny joke or something."
Late night television is dead now. It's unfortunate. There's never going to be another Chris Farley.
Nope.
Somebody mentioned Big Trouble in Little China in chat, and that is another. That's a great movie. I make references to that movie all the time, like weekly. So, Chris Farley was the original Shrek. They had to scrap it to redo it for Mike Myers? Is that an actual fact?
Yeah, you can go back and like see some original like rough cuts with Chris Farley's voice because he was the original voice for Shrek.
There you go. What would have happened? We would have gotten possibly one of the greatest animated movies of ever.
Yeah,
with Chris Farley in it. There's the answer to your question right there.
But
damn.
Bringing it back to Pokemon. So where do you see Pokemon going? And I mean, this is an impossible question to answer, but like you've been really big into playing the game, especially with Scarlet and Violet. Where do you see like the next couple sets? Do you see the hype kind of continuing for Pokemon going through Scarlet and Violet? Do you see any kind of downturns coming or what?
I think that if they try to pull the same bullshit that they pulled with Scarlet and Violet video game wise, again, it could go really bad.
And for anybody out there what do you mean by bullshit?
Well, the game is phenomenal. It's a great game to play, but it is I feel like I'm playing a GameCube game half the time. It's super glitchy. The graphics are not amazing. It's not where it should be. For example, like play Scarlet and Violet, and then if you have a copy of Breath of the Wild, just take your copy of Breath of the Wild, put it in your Switch, and just play it for 20 minutes, and like get a little parallel of like what was possible with a launch Switch. Breath of the Wild was a launch title for that, and what we're doing with their current Pokemon games. The money is there. They have the time to do it. They just wanted to rush it out early. And make it all have to kind of like happen at the same time I think the best thing that could possibly happen to Pokemon is maybe the cards and the video game separate, and they have different sets, different shit. Keep the same Pokemon in it, but like just have different things so that it doesn't have to be all at the exact same time. It doesn't have to be one big coordinated effort, because I hate to say it, thanks to the Pokemon trading card game, if that's the case, we're never going to get the Pokemon video game that we want, just because of how everything has to kind of go together.
I never consider that because of the timeline of the trading card game, if that game wasn't ready, because they could have held it back, right? But they
easily, yeah. If it weren't for everything else in the franchise, the game is almost like secondary at this point. They just have to put out a title just because it's a formality. But we want is that open world game.
So
that's the thing, is that's why I think that it could go either way too, because I drank the Kool-Aid. I own Scarlet and Violet. I bought both copies. I played that. I have close to 1,000 hours in that game. I've spent a lot of time playing it. But as somebody who is also, played the game, spent the money, I realize that it comes with a ton of flaws, like a gross amount of flaws. Super fun, but it's far from polished. And then once you're done with it, they just are going to milk the DLC just like they do with it. It just all feels really like it's the same, you know, like they don't ever shake it up. Like they're never doing anything really like cool and interesting. I feel like they could separate the two and maybe do different things, but I mean, realistically, that's never going to happen. That's just like scrambling at trying to find something that would maybe be a fix to making it so that they could actually spend 5 years on a game. Or maybe if they just made a Pokemon game that was completely removed from any current generation. They just chose 400 or 500 Pokemon out of like our 9 trillion that we have now, and just made a set game that they were going to focus on that had nothing to do with the current gens, and just like a completely different story, and they just focused on that, similar to how like Legends Arceus is. You know, like if they just focused on doing that and made something completely different and new, then they'd have something there. Like I feel like a cult hit, you know. Like I personally like Legends Arceus better. I think it's a better game. I think it was more tasteful. It's more well done than Scarlet and Violet. But Scarlet and Violet is exactly what we want, you know. Like it's like the big open world. It's what we need, except for the major shortcomings that it has.
Now, what do you think about for the TCG aspect of it? You know, like the collecting and everything, because we definitely came out of this period where you couldn't get product, and then we got back to the point where at least you could walk into most stores and pick up product. It might not always be the set you want, but you could always get something. What do you think about, like, you know, the future of just the TCG and the collecting and the investing and every other thing that people are doing right now? Do you see that dying down, or?
We're definitely, I think we're on the precipice of some kind of a recession in the Pokemon hobby. I know that's hard to say, but I think with how they've been juicing the sets is a good indication of how they're anticipating a downturn and they want to keep their numbers up. So, for example, adding an extra rarity to Scarlet and Violet, or even just like having the crazy amount of even just like having alt arts in every set and having all the art cards and just like juicing the shit out of everything, so that, you know, people are inclined to buy more. Because like we were buying the same amount that we were buying back when, you know, there wasn't 3 guaranteed rarity slots, and like, you know, like friggin' you weren't gonna get a trainer gallery hit and the extra juice that comes with that. So I feel like them just adding more and more juice is just the canary in the coal mine.
No, yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. It's almost that it happened a little bit with Sword and Shield when they still stuck around like Rainbow Rares, and, you know, go back just one generation earlier, go back to Sun and Moon. You pulled a Rainbow Rare, you were happy. You pulled the chase card.
Oh yeah. You know, now I'm like, fuck that, I'll keep it in my bulk.
Exactly. Now fast forward to Sword and Shield, you pull that same Rainbow Rare and you're like, you feel like you were robbed. Like, oh, I wasted my hit. Like, because for most booster boxes, that's your hit. Like, whatever that Rainbow Rare, Secret Rare is. So yeah, it did lose a little bit of its luster there. What set are you opening? Is that Crown Zenith?
I just figured, you know, casually open cards while we're talking.
Yeah, man.
See if I pull something cool. I already got the Suicune. That's the one card that I wanted. This reverse I actually need really badly for my...
That's actually sick artwork, too.
So, that's something actually that's a great topic to bring up, is when I started getting frustrated with how, like, Japanese got, like, super stonked out, I actually kind of changed the way that I started collecting. So I started choosing my favorite. I chose 3 of my favorite artists in Pokemon, and I just made it my deal to collect every single card that they do, and then made a binder that's just like my art binder. So for example, this is a Furusawa card. I want every variant, like a master set of everything Furusawa, or Iribi, or Kuramitsu. Those are like the 3 that I do. And I think that instead of trying to just like, it gets overwhelming to try and collect everything, you know, like people who try to collect every single modern card or every single English card, or that's just too much for me. I had to refine how I was trying to search and how I was trying to collect. And I think doing it by artist is a great way, or doing it by Pokemon is another great way. You don't have to you don't always have to stay up with the hype. You know, it can burn you out really, really, really fast.
Oh yeah.
And just like find something that you love and just focus on that. Be the guy that just like only collects snoms or whatever. You know, like just be that dude, or be like one of my favorite collectors and people in the community is Fitz. Fitz, straight up, he'll pull the craziest card and be like, it's not a jumbo. You can have it, man. You know, like, I respect the shit out of that. And he's just, like, always on eBay trying to find crazy rare jumbos and, like, you know, going down his own little rabbit hole. He's, like, off doing his own thing. And, like, I respect the shit out of that. I wish I could be more in that, you know, in that type of vibe. So I did exactly that. I just started trying to collect specific artists.
Yeah. So you said you collect specific artists. Have you been able to go to any signings and meet any of these artists yet?
I have not, because I live in Vancouver and it's a soulless city that has like 0 events. But I did, luckily, I'm very lucky to have an Arita auto that Ultra got for me at the Toronto event. Thank you, Ultra. Ultra, if anybody doesn't know who Ultra is one of the mods for Rattle's channel, and he's a mod in the Discord as well. He's basically like Billy Light, if you will. But he is one of the best people ever. He's always in all in the Discord, and he said to me, I was like saying how I was like bummed that everybody's gonna get to go to this Arita auto, and he was like, dude, I'll just straight up give you one of my slots. Send me a card, I'll have it signed for you. Didn't even ask for money, didn't ask for nothing. Guy's a straight legend. So I was lucky enough to get one of my Mimikyu Gengar cards signed by Arita. It's currently at PSA. So we'll see what it comes back as. But
Which
like
one?
that
Which
right
one?
there is
one of like the team
too.
up ones.
It's one of the team up ones. It's the one where Mimikyu's standing over Gengar and the moon's behind them.
That's a sick
I was
card.
thinking about doing the alt, but I don't like the alt art as much as the regular. What is it? A GX or?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Yeah, GX. It's the regular one, so I sent that away and got it signed. And it's because it was also from Ultra, not only Arita, it's got sentimental value as well. So I wanted to get it graded.
Yeah, when I first saw that card, it always gave me like a Halloween vibe to it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because like it looked
I
like
love
a
that card
in a way.
It's amazing. It's a Japanese version, so it's like super vivid and nice. No hate to the English, but everything just looks better in my personal opinion.
So on Sunday, so we're filming this live on a Saturday. So 1 week from tomorrow, I'm going to my first ever signing in person. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Ooh.
Like
Which artist?
I am a little nervous because my wife could potentially go into labor before then. Then obviously I won't be going.
Oh shit! Oh yeah, I forgot. You've got like major bun in the oven situation right now.
Oh yeah, she's 9 months pregnant, man.
Which artist is it?
Hitoshi Ariga. It's the same guy that.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
So, dude, I love that card.
Yep. So
I would totally get that card signed.
The irony is, this is my favorite modern Pokemon card, and I actually.
Great one.
If you look at this card, this is the card that when I go to different events, this is a slab.
Oh, you
I
have everybody sign it.
Yep.
That's so cool, man.
Because it's a totally undergraded slab, first of all. It's the cleanest 8.5 that's ever existed. It's like, should be a 10. They gave the surface an 8, which brought the entire... It's like 9.5, 8, 9.5, 9.5. But there's a bunch of names you might like remember, or you might have heard before. But some of the people in the chat, too. I think Chevals is in the chat. But Basic Trainer... Thrifty, TCG, Gem Mint Pokemon, Rock Pokemon, Old School Pokemon, Lord Pokesmoke, a bunch of people that a lot of people know. Dan Catchmall Collectible signed this slab. There's a bunch of other names too. But nice. Yeah, that's my favorite modern card. Oh, sick,
yeah, that's
man.
A doozy, dude. I just pulled the Raikou, which I had the Suicune, and now I got...
the Rotom,
that's bulk. That's bulk.
Yeah,
but
man,
that is a great card.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful fucking Pokemon card. See, I love the way... I like... The direction we're going is great. I mean, despite them juicing, I will accept juice from Daddy. Give
Yeah.
me juice, Daddy. Please. Please, all the juice. Because,
You know-
like, all this art is amazing. It's,
Yeah.
like, the best.
It's crazy to think, though. You almost get nervous. It's Pokemon you can never go back now, right? Like,
No.
you
No.
can't.
If they do, it's going to feel jacked.
You know, I look at a card like this. So, black and white base. There's 2 full arts in that whole set. 1 secret rare in the Pikachu.
Yeah.
Could you ever make a set that has 2 full arts and 1 secret rare, and then that's it? Good night. And no.
People would be like, nah, it's like fucking, people would just, no.
Yeah, you can't go back. So the question is, but Dan Ketchmole Collectibles, one of the guys that signed that slab, he always has a great phrase he says all the time. He goes, don't underestimate artists' abilities to art, which I think is a great sentence he says all the time. But it's true. Like, artists will always have the ability to art, but do we get to the eventuality where every card has to be a full art shiny variant of some type, where almost as the same way as you ever open a pack of Dragon Ball Z or something and you don't know which card is the rare, which is the uncommon, what's the chase.
Because they're all just wild and fucked up and shit like that. I think that's kind of where we're headed, honestly.
You think
where
so?
There's it's septuple rare or whatever, and you're like, what the fuck?
Well,
I think that's exactly where we're going.
Well, Pokemon just came out with their new rarity list. They actually made a list. This is what it means. Dude, I talk about Pokemon every freaking day, and I have no clue, what that, rarity list is. I don't know. Uh-oh. Lagging on my end. Uh-oh. Hopefully it just lagged. Oh, no. Are we lagging? No!
And like I said, I'm never going to complain, man. I don't want to go back to black and white where there was 1 or 2 good cards in the entire set and the rest is just clearly we're getting to the point where the TCG is no longer catering towards players and it's now catering towards collectors. That's exactly what it is.
So it froze on your end for a second, but we're back. I get super nervous. I'm going to have to make some real hardcore hardware upgrades before the next live. So but
yeah, no, I think with the juice, sign me up for more juice, man.
It's it's
I'm a collector though, I'm not a player.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet thing though. I think having the silver borders and stuff definitely helps because a lot of people were asking for that. Me personally, I could take it or leave it. Some people are super upset about silver borders. Some people absolutely love them. I'm just kind of indifferent, I don't understand.
I don't really like the color yellow, so I've always just gravitated towards the gray borders.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm indifferent about them, but I'm hoping at least that was Pokemon's small steps they're doing, because I don't want 5 years from now that it is the next Dragon Ball type set where you just open it up and you don't even know what you're pulling.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't get to that convoluted portion of of TCG, but I think right where we are right now is great. There's a good representation of playable cards. There's an amazing representation of collectible and art cards. And I think right where we are is perfect. We can just grow and go from here. It doesn't need to get more convoluted and fucked up, or it doesn't need to get more boring and fucking play, I think right where we are is they need to be able to find and ride that line, because ain't nobody playing those Dragon Ball cards. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I think, when you talk about the good playability of cards too, we definitely run into short windows of time where there'll be some super playable trainers and stuff will go super, expensive, but Pokemon does realize what's playable, and they eventually push those trainers out in auxiliary products. And I shouldn't say very rarely, never are you just going to get the most hyper rare full art trainer version of a playable card. You're going to get your normal bulk trainer, and whether it's trainer toolkits or build and battle, or maybe not build and battle box, but theme deck, stuff like this, eventually those cards will be pushed out to the players. So And
Yeah, I think I think it's just like they'll have to, like I said, they'll have to learn how to ride that line and
it's
not
that
not go
balance, right?
back. Because like you said, they can never go back.
I can't.
They just can't. No,
You
it's
just
not possible.
Yeah, you can't go back to a 3 chase set. You just can't do it.
No, no,
But
especially with. But I think yeah, if it doesn't get any crazier, cool. If it doesn't get any less boring, awesome.
yeah, man. But yeah, Rage, dude, I appreciate you so much. I'm so happy we finally got you to come on this channel. I know this live was a couple weeks in the making, huh?
Yeah, I work way too much. I recently started a new job, so and I'm working like 6 days a week. I'm doing quite a bit of stuff. Also, I did have a loss in the family,
Oh,
so
sorry,
I've
man.
been dealing with that as well. My older brother passed away.
Oh, dude.
But I just try to stay positive, man. Get through everything.
I
Like
mean,
you're never gonna. You're like life is just that much harder when you're like fuck everything.
yeah,
So just try to stay kind, stay positive, and like I was really excited to come on the pod. So once again, thank you so much for having me, man.
yeah, man. Sorry, all
I'm
that
just
stuff that's been going on, but no, I
that's
appreciate.
all good, man. I got great friends to help me through it, and you included. So
Yeah, man.
like that like my happy place is just hanging out with the homies in Discord on a Saturday evening, just opening some Pokemon cards, you know.
Yeah, man.
So
Well, I appreciate your Rage, and as soon as this live's over, I'm gonna be jumping over into the Rattle Happy Hour chat. I still saw a handful of people still in there. So if
yeah, I'm
anybody's
gonna do the
watching this
same.
live, and maybe this is the first time you're meeting Rage or the first time you're finding my channel, uh, I know Rage will tell you guys a little bit more, but join the Rattle Discord if you want to find like-minded people. If you want to just bullshit Pokemon or just
Mhm.
what me and Rage just did, bullshitted movies from the 90s talking about
Yep.
we keep in mind we talked about Three Ninjas Kickback in this podcast. Like
That's a deep cut.
that's a deep cut, yeah. So
Yeah.
if you want to be part of these conversations, that this is the kind of conversations that happen every day in in that Discord, and
Yep.
sometimes you need to just pull back a little bit and enjoy relaxing, enjoy like-minded people, and Rage is definitely one of those.
Yeah. Soak in the community, man. You
Yep.
know,
Soak it in.
realize that like, we're all incredibly like-minded, and when you got a bunch of us together, it gets pretty hilarious too.
Yeah, we're just big nerds at the end of the day too. Like that's all it boils
Like,
down to.
yeah, me and PK literally just talk about like Ninja Turtles and
Yeah,
like
you
cool
name
shit
it.
from like when we were kids, and
Yeah.
like that for me is all about it. Like just getting another hit of nostalgia. It's all good.
Yep. But yeah, man, I appreciate you. So right now, down in the link of the description of this video is a link to your Instagram. Do you want me to add any other links that you want people to check out?
No, just if anybody ever wants to say hi or whatever, just shoot me a DM, or if you live in Western Canada and you're in Vancouver and you want to meet up and like hang out or whatever, shoot me a DM. I'm always into meeting people that are like part of this community. And yeah, pretty much.
All right, guys. But yeah,
Appreciate you, man.
I recommend all you guys going down below, just clicking on that Instagram link, giving Rage a subscribe, a follow. He always is posting cool stuff. But yeah, man, once again, I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you're doing for the community, everything you're doing in the Discord. You're a beacon of light. Like, I always look for net positives, and you're definitely a hardcore net positive. But
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot to me, honestly.
And I only get to talk for my guests very, very few times during a live, but this is that point I get to talk for myself and the guests. For everybody out there watching at home, everybody watching after the fact, guys, we appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you so much for watching these lives. Again, as always, we'll catch you on the next video.
I had to do your token